with you, Ms. Cotton. Why don't you tell me how you two got together in the first place?
I say it was February in 2011. I was living in these apartments, and he was living across the street with one of his kids' mother, even though he didn't tell me that at the time.
Well, who did he say she was?
Actually, Your Honor, I never seen her.
Oh, okay.
She's seen her.
Keep going.
I
keep
never
going.
seen her at that time.
Keep going.
But I used to walk my daughter to the school, to the bus stop, and he'll see me. He'll make little jokes, because that's what he do. He makes up jokes just to keep everybody laughing. So we ended up changing numbers, and he came to my house, and we got to talking. He was talking about his ex and how they was about to get married, because that's what he tells all his women, that he's going to marry them. So he seen I didn't have a vacuum cleaner, and he brought a vacuum cleaner over, and he did my eyebrows, and he got to talking. And
he did your eyebrows?
Yeah,
that's a whole new move, Mr. Smith.
You know, but if that all it takes to get somebody to do somebody's eyebrows?
No,
I mean, man,
it's
vacuum cleaner and eyebrows is like, damn, that's all you got to do?
Now, how long did you know him before you married him?
Well, it's been like, what, a year and a half?
Before you married him?
Yeah.
Okay. So go ahead, tell me what.
So around that time, we end up, having sexual intercourse, and I end up getting pregnant.
Did he have any children with other women?
Yeah, he was bringing them over to my house. I used to watch his kids while he cut hair.
Well, how many kids did he bring over to your house while you were dating him?
I say about 8.
8?
It was probably more than that, Your Honor. I keep my kids with me. I love,
now he's lying.
Wait, hang on, Mr. Smith. Well, how many children do you have?
Your Honor, I got 12 sons, and I got, hold on. I got 12 sons, and I have 15 daughters. I have 27 altogether. Yep. She knew, I don't hide nothing from nobody that I get involved with.
Mr. Smith? How do you keep them straight?
Well, I brought evidence. I got a little something, a little family
chart.
tree, a little chart.
Do we have that? Oh, we do.
Oh, okay.
We've got it on the screen.
Same
now,
thing you got.
Now, so we got the tree here.
Correct.
And we got Nate at the bottom, because you created all of it.
That's me.
Okay. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4.
And that's it right there. That's it.
So you have 4 women that have more than one child with you.
That's
If we get to counting, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 babies' mothers?
Kids' mothers, yes.
Okay. Now, Miss Cotton, if you knew we had these many children while you were dating, what made you think good husband material?
Thank you.
Because
Thank you.
To be honest, I feel that I was young at the time, and I believe that he preys on young women. I'm not saying he's not a horrible man, but
when you say he preys on young women, what do you mean?
I was 20 years old. He told me everything I wanted to hear. He's seen that I was a single mother. I have a 6-year-old that has cerebral palsy. He's seen that I was struggling. I mean, I just believe that he does. Most of his kids' mothers are young, And
let me ask you this. Do you have any children that are the same age amongst all of these women?
Definitely. I had a spurt where, Your Honor.
How many children do you have right now that are the same age?
5.
I have 5 kids that are the same age.
Correct.
So you had a good year.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that in,
No. These results were prepared by DNA Diagnostics, and they read as follows. Because there wasn't a blood card available to test the DNA of the deceased Keyshawn Abraham, we performed what is called a DNA test with his surviving parents, Carolyn Baker and Lamond Abraham. With that being said, the results determined if there is a viable relationship between the child, Kenaya Abraham, and Ms. Baker and Mr. Abraham. In the case of Coates Hooker versus Baker, when it comes to 11-month-old Kenaya Abraham. It has been determined by this court the percentage of relatedness between Ms. Baker, Mr. Abraham, and Kenaya Abraham is 0%.
And this is why right here.
Ms. Baker, are you all right? Do you need to sit down? Do you need to sit down, ma'am?
They weren't gonna tell me sorry, so I'm not telling them nothing.
Do you need to sit down, ma'am?
Nobody did anything to you, honey.
I don't care.
Nobody
do nothing to me, but I don't like you.
That's
I don't like you.
sweetie.
I don't like you. Okay, I don't care.
It's
Nothing.
okay.
Stop talking to me then.
Nobody did anything
Stop
to
talking
you.
Ms. Hooker,
Okay.
just stop.
Stop it! Stop, please! Just stop!
Okay, come on, let's go.
You do owe my
Let's
mom an
go.
apology, though. That's who you owe one.
No, excuse me.
Because you know you slept with somebody else.
Ms.
And this is
Hooker.
what-
Girl,
Ms.
better stop
Hooker.
talking about it.
No.
Hey, go in there. Go in there. Go in there. You do too much. I don't care because you always think
You have to do whatever you're comfortable with. But you're not going to get it the way it ought to be. You can get it to a level where it's functional. That is, when I say get what the way it ought to be. Get any relationship the way it ought to be, particularly this thing called quote-unquote marriage, girlfriend, boyfriend, etc., care mate, which is what the code calls it. You can choose a care mate, a mate that cares for you, and you care for her, according to the code. But do not, under any circumstance, ever expect it to be the way that it should be. You can only get it to a functional level. Why? The white supremacists are not going to allow any non-white person to be in a so-called relationship with another non-white person that is the way it ought to be. That's why white supremacy needs to be eliminated and replaced with a system of justice. They don't allow that. If they allowed that, that would be a huge reason not to even get rid of racism. I mean, why get rid of something that's not giving you a problem? But the racists make sure that all so-called relationships between non-white people are going to be a problem between non-white people. They're not going to be able to get along under this system. That's not happening. Even when we think it's happening, it's not happening. Now, what do I mean by get along? I mean according to the criteria, the way it should be, with people who are in the universe, people who are completely in tune with everything that is constructed in the known universe. And you cannot have a constructive relationship between a black male, for instance, and a black female in a non-constructive society. And the system of white supremacy makes everything non-constructive when it comes to non-white people. So we can reach a level of acceptability, which is what we all do. Everybody's required to do that. But look at it like what it is, a prison system. You can't make a prison system the way it ought to be other than not have a prison system, an illegitimate prison system. And the system of white supremacy is an illegitimate prison system. So if you're born in that system, everything in it is tainted.
During the existence of white supremacy, the most powerful laws of marriage are dominated by racist man and racist woman. Since the non-white people of the known universe are subject to racist man and racist woman, the marriages between non-white people to each other, or between non-white people and white people, are functionally political support arrangements that are directly or indirectly used to serve the system of white supremacy in all areas of activity. Marriages between white people are for the purpose of practicing white supremacy. So-called marriages between non-white people have the effect of helping non-white people to help white people to practice white supremacy. Within the system of white supremacy, all of the affection, caring, commitment, devotion, and romance that is said to be associated with marriage is for non-white males and females a so-called union that is controlled by racist man and racist woman. The system of white supremacy is deliberately designed to dominate and mistreat people through the strict control of thought, speech, and action based on factors of color and non-color. It is a poisonous system. It makes all people poisonous in the ways that they interact with each other. It makes each person a carrier of poisonous thoughts. So we all messed up, and it's expected for us to be dysfunctional. We've been talking about this. Marriage is a mutual and harmonious relationship between males and females who also function as men and women. So he's going somewhere with this. During the existence of white supremacy, non-white males and non-white females are not permitted to function as men and women. They are only permitted to function as race children, persons who are subject to white supremacy. Children cannot be married. They can only be mated. Men and women can be married. Therefore, during the existence of white supremacy, only white people can function as married people and only to each other. Non-white people, while subject to white supremacy, should at all times expect their so-called marriages to take all of their so-called relationships, or excuse me, let me read that again. Non-white people subject to white supremacy should at all times expect their so-called marriages to be like all of their other so-called relationships, flawed. Once again, like you said, if the system is poisonous, everything that come out of it will have poison in it, so it will not be functional. Flawed, sometimes seriously flawed. The sweet followed by the bitter, followed by the sweet, followed by more bitter that is sometimes sweetly bitter. Any so-called marriage situation that involves non-white people can be correctly regarded as artificial, messy, non-logical, phony, pretended, unpredictable, unreliable, unstable, and or in truth, non-existent. Because of the current existence, we exist under the system of white supremacy. They defeated us a long time ago, and they still are continuing to maintain their dominance over us. So the way we interact with each other, because we can look at it we can look at the quality of marriage, the stats on the quality of marriage, stats on marriage rates. Over the last 50, 60, 70, 80 years, since 1965, we know since 1960, 1965, marriages have just degraded within our community. It's just gotten worse. Relationships have just gotten worse. Everything has gotten worse. But this is all by design. The system wasn't designed to create an environment for us to thrive, an environment for us to grow. So therefore, we have to be able to create these own environments for ourselves, even though we are still behind enemy lines. We have to be able to create these own environments for ourselves, but we have to reconstruct how we even exist with each other. But happy Monday and welcome back to On the Shoulders of Giants. I am Joseph Ward, and I am continuing my reading of Nelly Fuller's landmark pioneering book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a counter-racist code, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, white supremacy. And I am finishing up my reading of Area 8, which is sex, in Nelly Fuller's book. And I'm read from pages 336 to pages 357. So that's what we're reading. I started on 336 under marriage and mutual arrangement. So now I'm going to pick up on as long as white supremacy is the dominant socio-material force among the people of the known universe. So that's what I'm gonna pick up. But welcome back. I want to make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you hit that like button. Please hit that like button to help that algorithm. If you haven't subscribe already, hit that notification bell so you can get these notifications. Make sure you're sharing. Make sure you're giving constructive comments. It's okay to disagree, but disagree constructively. It's okay. Look, we're not going to agree on everything. We just not. I don't agree with everything in this book. We're not going to agree on everything. That's cool. But we still have to be able to function together. We still have to be able to work together. We still have to be able to build together. Hey, man, it's all good. We're not going to agree on everything, right? That's how relationships work. We have to relearn how to be functional in relationships, how to have healthy relationships. We have to learn how to be able to be around each other and be constructive. These are things we're having to relearn because of the degradation of our community and our societies and just the way we live as Black people living under the system of white supremacy. So let's pick up. As long as white supremacy is the dominant socio-material force among the people of the known universe, do not say that any non-white person is married. Instead, use the term attempted marriage or care-mated. And so his explanation is, as long as white supremacy exists, it is risk-prone for any non-white person to attempt to pretend marriage. They should instead devote their time to those activities that will best help to eliminate racism. So even in your relationships, everything that we do should be working to end the system of racism, to produce justice, to create our own, do what we need to do for self. Any persons who must have the direct or indirect approval of the white supremacists in order to engage in sexual intercourse, sexual play, and sexual communication cannot be married. As long as white supremacy exists, no person who is subject to white supremacy can be married. His theory is you can't be married, you can only be mated. We can only be paired, but not married, because we don't assume the positions of men and women. It is correct for victims of racism to help eliminate the illusion of the existence of so-called marriage by refraining from engaging in the so-called legal marriage or recognized marriage. The correct purpose for the so-called legal or recognized marriage is to help arrange a relationship between two or more people in such a manner that they can best help each other produce justice. I'm still wrapping my mind around that one. I'm so on that one. I'm reading what he's saying and I'm taking in what he's saying. So I really don't have a comment on that one just yet, because I'm still processing that one, just to be honest. I don't want to be the person who's sitting over here just giving out, just talking, thinking I'm giving an answer. I'm wasting y'all time. So I'm still wrapping my mind around that one to see what my logical response for that would be. Under the system of white supremacy, no non-white person is correctly qualified or prepared for marriage to anyone in any place at any time. He or she cannot guarantee the protection, assistance, and or material comfort that is necessary or expected in the conduct of a true or legal marriage. It is false for any person to say or pretend that he or she can be married and at the same time be subject to white supremacy. The falsehood that dominates such interaction helps to promote incorrect thought, speech, and or action in every area of his or her existence. So we cannot properly defend ourselves. We cannot properly overall provide for ourselves because we don't have any ownership of any true industries or true corporations or any true aspects of life that really help us to exist, help us to function on a day-to-day basis, to have the luxuries and the things that we have. We don't have control of these things. So since we don't have control of these things, we can best control what we can within our lives. So that means we have to put ourselves in the best position to exist, to be able to take care of ourselves, our mates, and our offsprings. If you're not in a position to take care of yourself, your mate, and your offspring, you shouldn't be mating. But that's a step to being able to control larger corporations, larger industries, larger infrastructures, to be able to have real control over our lives. We got to remember, if we're not controlling if we don't have control over like every aspect of our life, like every aspect, down to the infrastructure, down to having to being able to own and control the infrastructure that control the cities and the areas that we live in. If we don't have control over that, like, let's stop thinking about it on the surface level. Let's think about it in totality. Like, what does it truly take to run and operate a society? Start thinking like that. What does it take to run and operate a society? Not stuff that make you feel good, your luxuries and our comforts in our everyday lives. What does it take to really run a society? And evaluating what it really takes to run a society, how much of that do we actually control? Well, we know the answer. The answer is none of it. And that's the problem. Non-white people who have attempted marriage while subject to white supremacy have become devoted to a belief in a power and security for themselves that does not exist. By believing this, they then proceed to become more involved in and more devoted to maintaining the status quo. To maintain the status quo, however, is to functionally maintain white supremacy. These so-called marriages become little more than time and energy consuming exercises in avoiding the duty of promoting the elimination of racism and white supremacy. To avoid participation in any race-dominated so-called marriage is one of the easiest and most effective means by which these non-white people who are dedicated to the elimination of racism can better do so. So, well, what we doing ain't working. Ain't no way, ain't even trying to sound intelligent about it. Just be real. What we are doing, what we're currently doing ain't working. The current way that we're existing, the current way that we're relating with each other is not working. It's getting worse and worse and worse by the day. Marriages or so-called marriages. I mean, I'm with Nelly Fuller on the marriage thing because I mean, shit, look at it. Look at how it's operating. Look at how it's working. I mean, it's not even real. It doesn't even matter anymore. There's no principle about it. Like, and nothing's being built. We get into these marriages and nothing's built. It's more destruction than building. So why continue to do certain things? We need families. We need Black families. And we need to be able to build and accumulate wealth, money, power, and resources and be able to pass those down. But the current way that we're marrying or engaging or mating with each other ain't working. And also, like he's saying, if you're getting married and being married under the system of white supremacy, because a lot of times when we get married, we get soft. Or we get married, we get more compliant. And we go along and we become more part of the go along, get along game. Because now we have thoughts of survival and surviving and being able to exist and be promoted and excel within the system of white supremacy, within their system, within their companies, within their industries, not within ours. And this is for the most part. This is not everybody. This is not absolute. Shout out to the Black people who are out there being constructive and working to end the system of white supremacy within their relationships. Shout out to you. We need more like you. But for the majority of us, it ain't like that. All right. But that's what we're working toward. So Nelly Fuller is saying, do not say that you are married to anyone as long as white supremacy, racism exists. Instead, say that you are one or more of the following. We can be care mated, formal mated, legally mated, mutually mated, church mated, synagogue mated, temple mated, victim mated, tribal mated, counter racist mated, or arranged. If you are so-called married to a white person while white supremacy exists, say that you are mismated or a mismate. If you are non-mated, then say you are non-mated. I'm non-mated. Establish a mateship that does not include sexual intercourse, but avoid attempting to establish a marriage, a mutual and harmonious relationship between a non-white male and a non-white female until you become qualified to do so. Until we get our stuff together, until we do better as individuals, as men, as women, playing our specific roles that we got to play within our society. Leaders got to lead, followers got to follow, and everybody in between got to do their job. But until we get our stuff together, it ain't gonna happen. It's not going to work. The way we are relating with each other is not working. We don't know how to function properly. We don't know how to function healthily. We don't know how to build. We don't want to be honest about that. For the most part, we have an inability to build as individuals and as mates and as a collective. We have an inability to do that. We forgot who we are. We've lost our ever-loving minds. We've gone insane. Do not become involved in any serious commitment with any person who is not seriously trying to speak and act to eliminate racism and or produce justice. Tell that person that the arrangement that you have must not be regarded as serious if you and that person are not seriously involved in trying to replace the system of white supremacy. You got being careful about who you choose as your mate, being more diligent, like having better vetting systems. He suggested we need to have 200 naked, vulnerable, real, honest, adult conversations before we even engage in any sexual activity. Have 200 conversations like that. Doing our due diligence and checking each other out before we get together in any serious manner, relationship, making babies, anything, that is key. That is key. We have to build sustainable families, family units. We have to be sustainably mated. This shit has to work. Understanding that we've been conditioned to be against each other. We've been conditioned to go against the grain. We've been conditioned to be degrading. We've been conditioned to not like each other, to not work together, to learn to not like each other. We've been conditioned to war against ourselves. Understanding that, if you understand that, you got to be, and I'm saying this from experience of me, myself, my homeboys, and everybody else. We'd have made some, we call ourselves conscious, but look at the mates we choose. Think about that. Look at the mates, all of us who are supposed to be conscious and intelligent and wise and woke, and we know what's going on. But look at the mates we choose. That's because we're insane and just as insane as all the rest of us. But we have to work to minimize that insanity, and you have to be with somebody who's building, who's working to produce justice and eliminate the system of white supremacy. Somebody who's true about that has to be an honest, disciplined, structured, codified, upstanding human being. You can't produce justice if you're a fucked up person. That's just not gonna work. You could pretend like you're producing justice, but you will cause more problems than you solve. Here's a question. During the existence of white supremacy, and according to compensatory counter-racist logic, what persons are correctly qualified for marriage? His answer is white persons who have proven that they do not practice white supremacy. And number two is non-white persons who have proven that they are not subject to white supremacy. So with that being said, no non-white person, especially in America, no non-white person is fit for marriage, is qualified for marriage. No non-white person in the West is qualified for marriage because we all exist under the system of white supremacy. The note is, during the existence of white supremacy, all non-white people are forced to function as dependent children. Therefore, as a child, no non-white person is correctly qualified for so-called marriage. Like I just said, until we overthrow the system of white supremacy. But that's he's not saying, remember, he ain't saying it is our job to have healthy, functional, uplifting, empowering relationships that help to build what we need and produce justice and end white supremacy. Remember, he's also saying that. He's saying we need to get to, you still got to have something to build toward becoming men and women. You can't overthrow the system of white supremacy by just hoping that it happens. You got to actively build yourself. So we got to build ourselves up. We got to be better people. We got to work better. We got to function better. We got to operate better. We got to communicate better. We have to be more constructive people overall. And work together, men and women working together, building together, leading, following, doing all the jobs that we need to do so we can challenge the system of white supremacy. You can't overthrow something when you're weak. When you're weak as hell, when you're discombobulated, you're disunified, we're not on any accords, we don't like each other, we're insane, we're dysfunctional, we ain't gonna defeat nothing. We ain't gonna defeat nothing but ourselves operating like that. Do not attempt marriage until you can with few problems and without any assistance from your children, mate, from your chosen mate. Do all of the following, both yourself and for at least two other persons. Do not attempt marriage until you can provide adequate food, clothing, and housing and shelter. Do not attempt marriage until you can provide adequate medical services. Do not get married until you can provide adequate transportation services, and do not get married until you can provide adequate educational services. Now, he is saying this to both non-white men and non-white women, black men and black women. He's saying this to both sides, and I get it, especially in our current state in 2023. Remember, this book was not written in 2023. So a lot of things, well, I'm not saying a lot of things. So some things have changed and some things may need to be updated in the book. But that's why we're here, to make sure that we can bring the information and make it relevant to what we're going on today, right? In 2023, both black men and black women, we both have to be able to provide for ourselves. That's just the way the system made it. All right. But that does not mean that we can't get along. We can't work as a team. We can't work as a unit. Somebody got to be the quarterback. Somebody got to be the running back. Somebody got to be the fullback. I mean, it's roles to play in this. Let's stop acting like they ain't roles to play in this. It's roles to play in this, right? But if in this current system, under the current system of white supremacy, and in the current world that we live in, if you can't take care of yourself as an individual adult, you're not ready to take care of any offsprings. And especially as a man, if you plan on having a family, I believe this, and I got this from my pops. If you plan on having a family, if you can't take care of your family, if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people. Like you see the clips, the first clip, dude met the lady when he had 27 children. Better decisions got to be made on both sides. Better decisions got to be made on both sides. We got to do better. We got to do better. We got to. If you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of nobody else. That's for both men and women. And that's under the current system of white supremacy that we live in. Can't go back. It's not, and not just that, the economy and the world that we live in 2023. This ain't 50, 60, 70 years ago. This is different. And the system of white supremacy have evolved, and we have to be evolved enough to be able to fight it and understand this evolution. We need each other, black men and black women. We need each other. We need each other. We have to function properly so we can produce justice. Within the system of white supremacy, it is often and very likely that a non-white female may be forced by the circumstance produced by the system of white supremacy to make all of the aforementioned provisions for great periods of time and with very little help from any other person. In many or more circumstances, help that is adequate is not likely to exist. So, under the system of white supremacy, hey, you might, you have to expect, I get it though, and I'm not mad at you, have to expect stuff to go wrong. You have to be prepared, not expect, but be prepared. Be prepared for niggas to be niggas. Let's just say it like that. Niggas were made to be destructive, and it seems that we're not good at determining who's a nigga and who's not. So you got to be prepared for some nigga to happen. All right. Here's another question. What is the best and correct thing to say about a person who was born as a result of sexual intercourse between a white person and a non-white person during the existence of white supremacy? His answer is, say that he or she is a victim of white supremacy. The explanation is, during the existence of white supremacy and according to compensatory counter-racist logic, all non-white people at all times are victims of white supremacy. And he's saying that person who was born as a result of that interracial relationship will still be considered a non-white person. If you decide that it's best to be married within the system of white supremacy than to engage in sexual intercourse without being married, then do not under any circumstances complain about anything that your care mate says or does during the existence of marriage. His explanation is, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, the only logical reason for non-white persons to marry during the existence of white supremacy is to eliminate all complaints and all conflict between the persons involved in the marriage, or working to replace racism with justice. If we're not doing that, we don't need to be pairing up. The question is it correct to work hard to make a marriage work? The answer is a marriage that requires hard work to make it work is not a marriage. And he said it don't require work. He said hard work. If you got to go extra above and extra beyond to make the marriage work, and you're the only one trying to make it work, if both parties ain't trying to make it work, if both parties are not bringing that 100%, you got to work extra hard. And that means that y'all ain't serious about y'all relationship. So therefore, you would not be serious about the relationship as far as Black people ending the system of white supremacy and or producing justice. If you choose to engage in a marriage, do so only for the purpose of producing and giving support to offspring. If you choose to marry for happiness, expect to generally be disappointed. And this is important. That's why I want to make sure I read this. This is important. Family units are important. But Nelly Fuller is saying, if you marry for happiness under the system of white supremacy, you crazy. This ain't about happiness. This is about the production of justice and the ending of white supremacy. It's not about happiness. It's about creating stable, proper, healthy family units so we can produce more universal men and universal women and less niggas. Right? His explanation is, during the existence of white supremacy and according to compensatory counter-racist logic, marriages that involve non-white persons are in truth arrangements that give greater power to the white supremacists. All such marriages are directly or indirectly guided and controlled by the white supremacists. There is no guidance of happiness while subject to white supremacy and its divisive effects. And according to compensatory counter-racist logic, it is incorrect for any non-white person to expect to be happy as a result of getting married. You're not going to, nothing is functioning properly under the system of white supremacy, but yet we expect happiness. Well, we're going to get happiness when we end white supremacy. So, anti-sex, anti-gender. This is what he's talking about. So the white supremacists do all they can to help promote confusion among non-white people. They have found that one major way of confusing, weakening, and controlling non-white people is to promote alternative sexual acts among and between the non-white people. The white supremacists do this to make it easier to dominate and mistreat them in all areas of activity. Many non-white males function as so-called alternatives in an attempt to compensate for their fear of racist man and racist women. Read that again. Many and remember, Dr. Wilson talked about this. Remember, Dr. Wilson and Dr. Fuller, the information go together. It supports each other. Many non-white males function as so-called alternatives, you know what I mean, in an attempt to compensate for their racist, for their fear of racist man and racist woman. Dr. Wilson got at this. She was saying that many Black men look at the task of defeating the system of white supremacy and they are afraid. And they don't want to be seen as an opposition or even an enemy or a target of the system of white supremacy. So they relinquish their maleness, they relinquish their manhood for femininity and choose to exist in a manner that is seen as safer and less of a threat to the system of white supremacy, making us a lot more vulnerable. Many non-white males fear having to pretend manhood when confronted with the possibility of opposing racism and racist women, maybe when opposing racist man and racist women for some reason or another. They sense a danger in even acting like men when in the presence of white men or white women who may be racist. They therefore choose to escape the test of manhood in its popular socio-material sense and instead present themselves before white people as managed boys or as imitation females. Those non-white males believe that by appearing before the awesome white nation as females, the white supremacists will consider them to be more of an amusement rather than a potential threat. So they can easily move through life and easily be accepted and easily find a space of comfort in the system of white supremacy, pretending or imitating females or existing as females rather than as men. Because if you're seen as a man, then you're seen as a threat to the system of white supremacy. And remember, all threats have to be eliminated. Racist men and racist women have found that the system of white supremacy is made stronger when non-white people participate in, glorify, and or support alternative acts. In addition, racist men and racist women generally regard non-white males who function in the manner of eunuchs as being greatly qualified servants to the system of white supremacy. The degenderization, that word messed me up. The degenderization of many non-white people is one of the major strategies that the white supremacists use against the non-white people of the known universe. And we see it going on today. We see it going on today. It is logical to expect racist men and racist women to do everything they can to prevent non-white males and females from evolving into universal man and universal woman. So that's what he's saying. Even alternative lifestyles have been used to keep us from becoming who we are. Therefore, during the existence of white supremacy, there is reason to believe that racist men and racist women may or may not produce and or promote many so-called sexual categories that may or may not seem strange, harmless, or harmful. If they do this, there is reason to believe that they do this in order to expand, refine, or make more effective the sexual confusion that they promote among non-white people of the known universe. And remember, this book was first written in 1957. Of course, it's been updated over the years, but I don't recall the last year of the update, but this, I know this material was written before what we exist in now. And so some of you would say that Nelly Fuller and Dr. Welsing are prophets. And, you know, I'm not going to argue with that, but I won't say they're prophets. I will say they are masters of behavior. They understand human behavior greatly. They've mastered the understanding of human behavior. So with that mastery of the understanding of human behavior, they can predict future outcomes. They can tell you what future behavior traits and things that are going to happen because they understand human behavior. So Nelly Fuller has a long list of sexual categories that racist man and racist woman, he says, has created. So, you know, I'm gonna just give some of them. So I go A through W. There's all sexual, Balkan sexual, blessed sexual, carnage sexual, charity sexual, church sexual, comfort sexual, contrasexual, devisexual, democracy sexual, donor sexual, ethnosexual, edusexual, equisexual, equine sexual, event sexual, fierce sexual, feline sexual, femgazian, flash sexual, flexisexual, gigolo sexual, half sexual, health sexual, hybrid sexual, jest sexual, kin sexual, mass sexual, match sexual, monosexual, morph sexual, nanny sexual, natural sexual, necrophilia sexual, non-sexual, normal sexual, nymphosexual, osexual, off-sexual, omnisexual, oral sexual, ordained sexual, pansexual, perfect sexual, pimp sexual, polysexual, polydisexual, polysexual, quad sexual, queer sexual, quest sexual, radical sexual, religious sexual, sacred sexual, secular sexual, septisexual, Solomonic sexual, torture sexual, transsexual, trunkosexual, unisexual, war sexual, whore sexual, word sexual. See, these are some of the sexual categories that Nelly Fuller is saying that racist man and racist woman have given us. There's reason to believe that a substantial part of the white supremacist racial sexual confusion strategy is to promote the concept of the vagina of the non-white female is of little or no value in the world of future sexual classifications, right? Well, we can see that now the vagina is being left behind. A lot of stuff these women fought for is coming back to bite them now. Since the beginning of the system of white supremacy, the white supremacists have consistently worked to disrupt and confuse any commitment by nature that attracts the non-white males and females to each other sexually in a constructive manner. Therefore, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, the practice of compensatory counter-racist sexuality and counter-racist genderism, generous sexual intercourse or sexual play between non-white males and non-white females exclusively is the best and correct procedure to evolve, morph, and or mutate into non-white people fulfilling the basic concept of universal man and universal woman. Here's a note. It is important that counter-racist sexuality be recognized and supported as a most natural and major activity in opposing the racist sexual confusion strategy. This is what he's getting at. Counter-racist sexuality supports the sexual evolution of universal man and universal woman. So he's saying, in order for the Black community to be able to produce, to just basically produce, of course, male and female needs to be together, just for the production, the reproduction of life. But also, if we're going to effectively fight the system of white supremacy, men, Black men, masculine, strong Black men have to exist. We are the ones to oppose the system of white supremacy. So we have to exist. We have to exist. And feminine women, nurturing women have to exist so we can properly have offspring and rear them to become universal man and universal woman. Here's a question. Can a person who practices alternative acts be effective in helping to end racism and in helping to produce justice? And this is a good question. The answer is a person who commits alternative acts can be effective in helping to end racism. He says they can be, but he or she cannot be effective in helping to produce justice in the absence of racism until he or she stops committing alternative acts that hinder the evolution of non-white people into functioning universal man and universal woman. His explanation is, it is possible for a non-white person to mistreat another non-white person and at the same time be effective in doing something that helps to end racism. However, it is not possible for any person to mistreat any person and at the same time produce justice between people. Let me read that again. It is possible for a non-white person to mistreat another non-white person and at the same time be effective in doing something that helps to end racism. However, it is not possible for any person to mistreat any person and at the same time produce justice. Because remember, you can end racism, but Nelly Fuller is suggesting to end racism and replace it with the system of justice. Because you can end white supremacy, and white supremacy can be replaced with another form of supremacy. His suggestion is to always produce justice so you can replace the system of white supremacy with justice. For example, and here's an example he's giving. A person who helps to save a non-white person from being killed by a white supremacist has done something that may have helped to end white supremacy, and by doing so, help to produce justice. Later that same day, that same person may help to continue the promotion of non-justice by having alternative sexual acts with their kin, with the daughters, with the aunts. Those acts will not prevent that person from doing things that are effective against racism, right? So you could be on both sides, but at the end of the day, if you're not ultimately on the side of production of justice 100%, you're not really helping to produce justice. You can aid in the fight against white supremacy, but you won't aid in the total elimination of white supremacy and the production of justice. In matters of justice, all acts between all people are interrelated. Therefore, any attempt by a person to have sexual intercourse with another person of the same sex, according to Nelly Fuller, is an unjust act, right? These acts are not correct whether racism exists or not. If they directly or indirectly hinder the evolution of non-white people into functioning as universal man and universal woman. It is what it is, right? Here's a note. During the existence of white supremacy and according to compensatory counter-racist logic in the known universe, no person in the known universe can function in a manner that is just and correct, sane in any area of activity. But he's also saying, remember this though, saying all this, but remember this, the underlining thing about all this is we're not supposed to function properly under the system of white supremacy. We're supposed to be insane. We're supposed to be trashy, tacky, terroristic, backwards, degrading, all these things. To have a black person who functions in any manner of normalcy, it's amazing because we are supposed to be crazy. To minimize confusion in regards to offering your opinions and suggestions involving sexual matters, as well as racial matters, be willing to explain your reason and your purpose for all that you say. During the existence of white supremacy and according to compensatory counter-racist logic, the things that people do or don't do in matters of sex, alternative sex, are greatly affects what people do, don't do, or will do in manners of race, racism, counter-racism. He's saying, don't be fooled and think that just because people can get along in a sexual manner that they can get along to end the system of racism. Those two do not correlate. Just because you have one white friend or you have sex with white people or all these things here doesn't correlate to the production of justice and the ending of white supremacy. Here's another question. Is it correct to persecute or poke fun at people because of their homosexuality or lesbianism? The answer is no. However, as long as the system of white supremacy exists, it is incorrect for any non-white person to help to promote or glorify any acts that are not helpful to produce universal man and universal woman. He's saying don't persecute these people, but by the same time, he's saying that the alternative acts don't help to end white supremacy and or produce universal man and universal woman. How should a non-white person regard homosexual or lesbian white people who say that they want to help non-white people? Another good question. Non-white people should be willing to accept help from any person who offers help that is of constructive value. The help that is accepted, however, must never include any promotion of alternative activity. In addition, any white person who directly or indirectly deliberately produces or supports alternative activity between non-white people should be regarded as a racist and or suspect race white supremacist. Here's another question. What is one of the most important things that you should not do if you are a person who promotes or practices alternative lifestyles? And the answer is do not seek to promote or practice your alternative lifestyles under the guise of trying to end racism, white supremacy. So there's an end to that. So that's what he's saying about alternative lifestyles. This is how Nelly Fuller is lining up alternative lifestyles and how they can be used to promote the system of white supremacy and how they can be used to end the system of white supremacy. So these are general suggestions to non-white females. Black women, these are for you. Do not engage in sexual intercourse or sexual activity or play with any white person in order to best help to end the system of white supremacy in a swift and efficient and correct manner. This suggestion is an absolute necessity. He's saying black men, especially black men, should not engage in relationships, sexual intercourse with white women, and white women should not engage in sexual intercourse or relationships with white men. Do not keep secret any act of sexual intercourse or so-called homosex or lesbianism that you have engaged in with any white person. Be willing to tell all and do so in a manner that is direct against the system of white supremacy. Do not allow your offspring to ever see you in any direct sexual intercourse situations with any person except the same non-white person with whom you have produced the children with. Your children should not see you with any other person in a sexual manner. They should not see you in any sexual manner with any person except the person that you've produced them with. Do not keep secret any information that you know about a white person who has had or is having sexual intercourse with a non-white person, but do not reveal the names of the non-white people without their permission. Do not produce offspring until you can adequately feed, clothe, and shelter them with very little help from others, and until you are ready, willing, and able to teach them in great detail about racism, what it is, how it works, in all 9 areas of human activity. While waiting for or looking for your potential choice of a mate of the other complementary sex, use your time and energy to learn all that you can about everything in the known universe that is of constructive value. Also, use what you learn to try to make yourself as confidently self-reliant and as constructively non-dependent on others as you possibly can. I get it. I get that point, but I don't know how well that has really helped men and women operating as independently as possible. I don't know how well that has helped. Do not regard any constructive work as something in the way that is keeping you from doing more important things. Regard all time and energy spent doing constructive work as a normal part of your growth as a constructive person. Seek to make all constructive work entertaining. Do not do anything that you have reason to believe will result in your being put into greater confinement. Don't do anything to go to jail. Do not think about or make plans for so-called marriage as long as white supremacy racism exists. Instead, use your time and energy as much as possible in constructive learning experiences and constructive learning environments to try to become as self-supporting as possible under the conditions of white supremacy. I believe all adults should be able to take care of themselves and anybody else that is dependent upon them. I believe all adults should be able to take care of themselves and anybody that's dependent upon them. But we still have to be able to work together. We cannot be working independently. You should be able to take care of yourself, but we have to be able to work together as men and women. We have to be able to work together, and somebody has to take the lead. Constantly test your ability to function constructively while in the presence of extremely difficult white people and or non-white people, particularly in job situations. Do this by minimizing unnecessary contact, saying only that which is necessary and constructive, and avoiding all trivial conversations, right? We got to become the best versions of ourselves, male and female. Got to become the best versions of ourselves, male and female. Everybody has that responsibility and that duty. Do not use any time and energy planning to attract or find a mate. Use all that time and energy to learn all that you can that will help you become self-reliant and best helps you to end white supremacy and replace it with this system of justice. As long as white supremacy exists, the correct and most efficient way for a non-white female to attract and or find a mate that is worthy of the title of care mate is to end white supremacy and replace it with justice. Until then, expect all of your so-called mateships to be seriously flawed. So we can have, but we have to have as healthy relationships between male and females as possible to exist before we attempt to end the system of white supremacy, so we can effectively end the system of white supremacy. We can't fight it as individuals. We have to fight it as a collective, as a codified collective. Do not visit people or deliberately seek to meet with people except to do one or the following. So ladies, listen up. He's saying, do not visit people or deliberately seek to meet people except to do one of the following. Help to do constructive work, such as producing, cleaning, repairing something of constructive value. Exchange views about what to do to end racism, to eat, drink, and have shelter, or to engage in sexual intercourse no more than 2 times a week. If you are a female, do not agree to have casual constructive personal conversation with a non-white male that you meet without limiting your interaction with him to the following. Let me read that again. If you are a female, do not agree to have casual, constructive, personal conversation with a non-white male that you have met without limiting your interactions with him to the following. Ask him if he is currently constructively employed. That's important. If he is not currently constructively employed, tell him that you will talk to him, but only about ways and means of helping him become constructively employed. No sex. If he is currently constructively employed, tell him that you will talk to him about how to produce and maintain something of constructive value, how to end racism, and how to produce justice. And this is for, remember, he said this to the males too. We have to make sure that we are mating with and reproducing with constructive people. We shouldn't just be having babies just because I think I need to have a baby, or I'm ready to have a baby. I'm ready to get up pregnant. I'm ready to be a daddy. Hey, man, are you constructive and do you have your shit together? Male or female? Are you working it to produce justice in the system of white supremacy, or are we just out here just slanging babies and creating more niggas? What are we doing? Avoid talking to any person except for the following reason. 1, teaching and or learning how to produce, transfer, clean, or repair something of constructive value. 2, establish a constructive socio-sexual relationship with a non-white person in order to best help to accomplish the aforementioned item in number 1, teaching and learning how to produce justice, right? Engage in sexual intercourse or sexual play with only non-white people that do not depend on you or need support from you other than for sexual intercourse with you, but no less than 2 times a week. Well, no more than 2 times a week. So, during the existence of white supremacy, and according to compensatory counter-racist logic, there's no way that non-white males can protect, defend, and support any person, creature, or thing without the direct protection, defense, and support of racist man and racist woman. So under the system of white supremacy, we don't have the tools to properly defend ourselves, right? We don't have the tools to properly defend ourselves. Now, we can work toward to get to what we need, but we got to get to work. We got to get to work. That's what I'm getting from it. We got to get to work. We know we don't have what we need, so we got to get to work because nobody's going to fix this for us. Do not expect to have harmony in any arrangement that you have with your chosen mate of the opposite complementary sex. Do not expect to have anything better than a mutual agreement on a few matters, right? Because of the conflicting values of the non-white males and females are taught while subject to white supremacy. They can have mutual agreements, but they cannot achieve harmony. It would be difficult for us to achieve harmony under the system of white supremacy because it was built for us to be contentious. Well, the conditioning that we was given was intended for us to be contentious. The system of white supremacy was built for white supremacists to thrive. The conditioning we received was meant for us to be contentious. Under white supremacy, the conflicts between non-white males and non-white females are built into the educational and social material processes that dictate the ways that we are forced to interact with each other. Like I just said, non-white males and non-white females should know that they will have conflict with each other as long as white supremacy exists. They should prepare in advance to minimize that conflict by minimizing non-constructive or aimless contact. Being the best you can be and being constructive about how we live our lives. When arguments start, try to minimize conflict by minimizing all unnecessary contact. When arguments start that result from the failure to have harmony, temporarily agree to not talk to each other. Do not stay in the immediate presence of each other. Do not send messages to each other. Do not talk to each other or to others in a derogatory way. Do not contact each other, again, without a very constructive reason or plan for doing so. If we can't get along, we got to get on. But we have to learn how to be constructive with each other. We have to learn how to be constructive with each other. There's no other way. We have to learn how to be constructive. To non-white males, to black men's, do not fight, hit, strike, or otherwise do any bodily harm to any non-white female except in direct emergency defense against non-just bodily harm to self, others, or any direct emergency protection in any emergency necessary possessions. And I go for the women too, men and women. Keep your hands to yourself. Keep your anything that is going to be harmful to each other, keep that to yourself. Men and women, keep your hands to yourself. It is non-constructive for either one of us to be physically, verbally, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, financially abusive to each other. Do not name call women, regardless of what they say or do. But women, you need to behave like constructive ladies. Be constructive. Do not call each female person, call each female person lady and or by their names and or the titles that she asked you to call her. Do not resort to name calling any persons, male or female, white or non-white, no matter how many times they name call you. Do not engage in any act of sexual intercourse with any female except a non-white female, and unless you are ready, willing, and able to deliberately volunteer all information about what you have done in all manners pertaining to sexual intercourse, sexual play, alternative activities, including times and places, but do so without naming any other females by names or titles unless those persons were white. Do not engage in sexual intercourse with any non-white female unless you reveal to her that she will most likely be or not be the last person that you will have sexual intercourse with, as long as she exists and is willing to be able to have sexual intercourse with you. Creating mateships, creating partnerships, creating relationships that are healthy, that can last, that we can rear proper children to become racist man. I mean, universal man and universal woman, which mean we are steadily evolving into becoming universal man and universal woman. Do not tell any person about any act of sexual intercourse that you have had with any non-white person without that person's permission, or except when it's necessary for you to do so in order to prevent or to cure a disease. Do tell all non-white females about any act of sexual intercourse that you have had with a white female. Do not do physical harm or violence or threaten to do any physical harm to any non-white female because of your dissatisfaction with her sexual conduct, either with or without yourself or with another person. Either tolerate her conduct or seek another non-white female who you are less dissatisfied with. Move on. Find somebody better. Find somebody more constructive if you got issues with the women that you have. Make a maximum effort to speak and act effectively to stop the harm that is being done to non-white females. Speak and act to put a stop to fighting them, taunting them, name-calling them, being discourteous to them, belittling them, committing SA to them, eliminating them, or helping to deprive them of what they should have, and forcing them to do more with less. Minimize or avoid entirely the wearing of any unnecessary bodily ornaments, rings, necklaces, fingers, anklets, whatever they be wearing. Wear such ornaments only for the purposes of attracting attention to yourself for reasons that are specifically and totally constructive. Avoid doing anything for purposes of showing off or for reasons that do not promote a constructive result. Avoid arranging your hair for attention-getting purposes. If a chosen female mate or companion suddenly and without warning or apparent reason rejects you as her partner in intimate affection and or in sexual intercourse, do not, because of her rejection, vent rage at her, seek to torment her, and or any manner seek to do any mental or physical harm to her. I agree. Move on. Keep it moving. Keep your distance from her. And if for any reason you are ever in her presence, be courteous and constructive in all of your speech and action, regardless of any disdainful thoughts. Do not try to dictate to a non-white female in order to try to prove your manhood to her. I agree. Do not curse her. Do not pretend that you are somehow entitled to demand anything of her. Always refer to every non-white female as a female and or a lady. Refer to every white female as a female and a lady or a woman. You can't. We got to find a better way to relate to each other because the way that we're doing ain't working. So if I'm a man and I'm trying to interact with a woman, even lead a woman, and I have to force my leadership upon her, then that lets you know I ain't that dude, right? Do not make any demands on non-white females. Make requests, what I'm saying. Do not speak and or act as if you are the boss of any female person in the known universe. Ask, but do not demand that he or she do or not do what you think should be done or not done in your general interactions with her. Do not speak and or act as if you have the power to do anything with, for, or against any female person in the known universe without the direct, indirect permission or approval of those white people who practice white supremacy. Speak and act as if you understand that the white supremacists are the actual bosses of all non-white females, as well as all non-white males in all areas of activity. So we're both males and females. We're both non-white males, black males, black female, black men, black women. We're both under the thumb of white supremacy. They're the boss of both of us. But we still got to get our stuff together. We still got to get our team in order. We still got to get our houses in order, right? Do not blame non-white females for what they do or say as a result of their contact with white men and white women, particularly in regards to matters of pertaining to sexual intercourse, alternative acts, education, entertainment, and religion. I don't know if I all the way agree with that. Because yes, racism is the root of all our problems. But in order to fix our problems, we got to take accountability and responsibility to become better. So I don't know if I all the way agree with that. I get it. I get the concept of you can't blame somebody for their behavior and how they react to the system of white supremacy when they've been conditioned to behave like this, right? I get that. We've been conditioned to behave like this. But in order to change things at some point, we're going to have to take some kind of responsibility and accountability for how we've been doing things so we can change it and be better. Avoid doing or saying anything that is intended to belittle or insult any person, white or non-white, male or female. If you think that your chosen mate deserves to be belittled, there's no logical or constructive reason why your chosen mate should be your chosen mate. Do not fight, curse, name, call, or seek to make hardship for any non-white female who boldly or quietly shows you that she enjoys or prefers being used by white men sexually or in some other manner that is derogatory or non-constructive. Instead, direct all counter-racist speech and actions toward and against the racists themselves, not against the non-white female victims. According to compensatory counter-racist logic, no person can correctly claim so-called ownership of another person. The only owner of any person is the creator. As a non-white male, it is incorrect to regard yourself as qualified to demand that non-white females follow your leadership in anything that is said or done in any area of activity, including economics, education, labor law, politics, religion, sex, war, and counter war. In all institutions, in all situations, it is better to ask than to demand. People have a choice of whether they want to follow your leadership or not. That's a choice, unless you have the power to make them follow you. Remember that. As a non-white male, any request that you make should be made to those white men and white women whom you have reason to believe are racist within the system of white supremacy. It is correct that you make certain that what you request will be effective in helping to produce justice. It is the non-white females who have received the least constructive compensatory support in helping them to correctly care for themselves and their offsprings. But that's by design. It's supposed to happen that way. They're not supposed to receive support, especially from the system of white supremacy. Now, support from us, yes. Have we received adequate support across the board? No. It is the non-white females who, when burdened with a child within their bodies, have been the most abused and have been given the least support while in the weakened condition of childbearing, right? Because white supremacy exists. Because of the abuse of non-white females, the non-white females suffer, their offspring suffer, and their offspring of their offspring suffer. It is incorrect for any people to demand that non-white females submit to their leadership. Considering that non-white females have so far failed, considering that non-white males have so far failed to protect themselves and so far failed to protect non-white females from being dominated and mistreated by racist men and racist women, non-white males should be totally opposed to demanding anything of any non-white person, of any non-white female. Once again, to become a leader, people have to choose to follow you unless you have the power to make them follow you. Considering the long-term and total subjugation, misuse, abuse, and general trashing of non-white females by racist men and racist women, which they are supposed to do, every non-white male in the known universe should not think of himself as a man or expect to be regarded as a man. I'm cool. I get that. I don't have no pushback against that. We lost the war, and we're still losing the war. So we can't regard ourselves in the same position as white men and white women. We can't do that. We lost a long time ago on the continent of Africa. We lost every other place in the world, and we're still losing. Both sides, we're losing. Men, we got to get our stuff together. We got to. In greater numbers. There are men, there are very constructive men who are suitable mates to rear offspring. Those men have to choose constructive women. And there are women who are constructive, good women who are suitable women to produce, to give birth to and rear offspring. But those women have to get with constructive men. Constructive people have to start pairing and mating together. We got to stop what we're doing now. Whoever you're pairing, whoever you're choosing to pair and mate with, stop doing that. And whatever methods that you're using to choose these people, stop doing that. Get some help. It's not working. Our marriages, our relationships, our partnerships, our family ships, all of the ships that we're on are sinking. But it's by design. Remember, it's by design. This is supposed to happen. Under the system of white supremacy, Black relationships are supposed to be trash. They're supposed to be. So that's why we have to put in the work to become universal men and universal women, to become the greatest versions of ourselves, to be as constructive as possible, so we can produce something better for ourselves in our future. And then we could be better oppositions and even overthrow the system of white supremacy. And once we overthrow it, immediately replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. They made the mess, and it's on us to fix the mess that they put us in. Yep, they made the mess, and we got to fix the mess for us that they put us in. And if we don't fix it, well, you already know what it is. It ain't nothing gonna work, nothing gonna happen, nothing gonna get better. We're still gonna be here 50, 100 years from now complaining about the same damn things. Oh, woe is me, white man this, and woe is me, white man that, and I hate Black people this, and I hate Black people that. We're gonna have more disdain for ourselves, and it's gonna be even more difficult for us to produce justice. So that's why we do our reading. So that was area 8. So we're moving on to area 9 for the next video. So next time you see me, I will be reading area 9, war and counter war. And the pages go from, let me see. So war and counter war goes from page 359 to 399. So the next time you see me, most likely have read for the last video of this book, have pretty much read all of area 9. Now, after area 9, there's general compensatory quotations for thought, speech, and or action. So there are quotations that you can go over and things like that. But we'll see. I think the last video will be area 9, and then I want you to go over quotations and stuff for yourself. And if you haven't read the book, read the book. Very good book. Very, very, very good book. I recommend this book. Don't agree with everything in the book, but I highly, highly, highly recommend this book if you're serious about talking about producing justice and ending the system of white supremacy. We need to understand what we're dealing with and why we're dealing with what we're dealing with. If you don't know and understand the who, what, where, when, why, and how, like Nelly Fuller said, if you don't understand racism, what it is, how it works, and how it affects us, anything that we seek to understand will only confuse us. So once again, happy Monday. I love you all. Thank you for the support. Keep doing your thing. Thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. Yeah, just keep doing your thing. Let's keep fighting. Let's keep working. And let's keep doing what we need to do. Joseph Ward, and I'll holler at y'all.